It does seem a little odd, does it not, and you're a very distinguished police officer, that the News of the World seemed to have an ex-employee working for the Leader of the Opposition, and the News of the World had an ex-employee working for you. Did that not strike you as a little bit odd, whether by coincidence or deliberately, that the former editor of the News of the World ends up with the Leader of the Opposition, and the deputy editor of the News of the World ends up with the Metropolitan Police Commissioner?
Well,
I accept what you said about Mr. Wallis, that there was no implication that he was involved in phone hacking when you took him on. We'll come on to the circumstances of that. We accept that support because it's not been recorded anywhere else. But isn't that a little odd? Because at some stage you would have met the Leader of the Opposition before he became Prime Minister, and Mr. Coulson would have been with him, and Mr. Coulson would have known, would he not, that Mr. Wallis was working for you. It's inconceivable that Mr. Coulson would not have known that Mr. Wallis had a contract with the Metropolitan Police.
Well, by recollection, I think I'm right in saying I don't think I ever met Mr. Coulson at all before Mr. Cameron became Prime Minister.
Did you meet Mr. Cameron before he became Prime Minister?
I think I did. Yes, I did. I think I had one meeting with him.
But it's inconceivable that Mr. Coulson would not have known that one of the people working for you was his ex-mate at the News of the World, surely. Well, I mean, you'd know what your ex... You know that Andy Hayman had got another job, obviously, because he writes a column for News International. But this kind of thing must be discussed.
I'm sure if there's a close relationship between Mr. Coulson and Mr. Wallis, that they would discuss it. But I never met... I think I met Mr. Coulson once. I certainly didn't meet Mr. Coulson and Mr. Wallis together at all, and I had no discussions with them about it.
But it's inconceivable they wouldn't have known about each other's jobs.
It seems to me, if they were friends, it's inconceivable they wouldn't talk.
Now let us go on to the contract. Did you...
Sorry, sir, can I just make is it a distortion to say that Mr. Coulson worked for the Prime Minister and that Mr. Wallis is working for me? Mr. Wallis was not working directly for me. This was a minor part-time role through which I received some occasional advice.
Excellent. So let us look at that role. Were you one of the people consulted when Mr. Fedorcio offered him the contract to work as a consultant? You have 69 press officers in the Metropolitan Police, but you needed another consultant.
I think it's 45, actually, sir.
45?
Yes. So
okay, maybe it's the cuts, is it?
Maybe it's what?
Has it gone down?
It's 45.
Right. But you needed an extra consultant.
Well...
Were you consulted before he was appointed?
Yes, I was. But just let me say, with the benefits of what we know now, I'm quite happy to put on the record, I regret we went into that contract, quite clearly, because it's embarrassing.
Indeed.
This was the time when Mr. Fedorcio, his deputy, was long-term absent with a very serious illness.
Yes. You were consulted, you were asked, is this a good idea?
Well, I think I would take it further. I said to Mr. Fedorcio, I do think you need additional support here. When Neil Wallis would be someone known to me, when Neil Wallis's name came up, I would have no concerns about that. He may well be a suitable person, and then so I would have no concerns about that. I know that Mr. Fedorcio would have mentioned that name to me, but then I know Mr. Fedorcio would go away and go through a proper procurement process.
So you were consulted. You even suggested his name.
No, I don't. I don't think I suggested.
But you said you were consulted, but you didn't make the final decision, or did you?
No, I wasn't involved in the procurement process. But I have to say, I would not be discomforted by the fact that Mr. Wallis came out of that process because I knew nothing to his detriment. And he provided advice.
It is argued in the media that actually the Metropolitan Police went out and asked Mr. Fedorcio to do this, Mr. Wallis to do this job. Is that correct?
I think you would have to ask Mr. Fedorcio of how he managed that procurement process.
We will very shortly.